My name is Sarah, and I am 38 years old. Looking back at my life, I see a long journey filled with heartbreak, lessons, and a strength I never knew I had. Today, my 11-year-old son, Adam, and I live a peaceful life in Brookfield, a place that finally feels like home. But the road to this peace was filled with struggle and pain. A decade ago, I was married to a man I once believed would be my forever. His name was Alex. When we met, I was 25 and had just started working as a teacher. He was a car dealer, full of charm and ambition. We connected instantly, and he made me feel secure, hopeful, and excited for the future. When Alex proposed, I was overjoyed. He promised that we would build a beautiful life together, just the two of us. But there was one important thing I needed to ask before we got married. Alex, I asked one evening, will we be living with your mom after we get married? He laughed and shook his head. No way. She loves her independence. Besides, I know how to set boundaries. I trusted him. His mother, Mary, had lived alone since her husband passed away. She seemed nice enough, so I thought everything would be fine. I had no idea how wrong I was. The first month of marriage was wonderful. Then things began to change. At first, everything seemed normal. Alex and I enjoyed our time together, settling into our new life as husband and wife. But just a few weeks after our wedding, small things started to feel off. It began with unannounced visits. One quiet afternoon, Alex and I were relaxing at home when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Who could that be? I muttered. Alex just shrugged and got up to answer the door. When he opened it, there stood his mother, Mary, smiling brightly, with a pie in her hands. Surprise! I thought you two might like some dessert, she said cheerfully. Oh, that's really sweet of you, Mary, I said, forcing a polite smile as I took the pie from her hands. At first, I thought nothing of it. After all, a mother visiting her son wasn't unusual. But as the weeks went by, her visits became more frequent. What started as occasional drop-ins turned into long, unexpected stays. She didn't just bring food anymore. She started demanding meals and suggesting we have dinner together every week. You really should cook more often, Sarah, she remarked one evening as I prepared dinner. I'd love to come over and help you. I felt trapped. Oh, that's okay, Mary. I've got it covered, I replied, keeping my voice light. But deep down, I felt suffocated. I had imagined a life with my husband, not a life where his mother would constantly interfere. I tried to talk to Alex about it. Can you talk to your mom? I asked one night after she had stayed way too long and had a little too much wine. I really need some space. Alex sighed. She's just trying to bond with you, Sarah. It's not a big deal. But it is a big deal, I insisted. I need my privacy. He promised he would talk to her. But nothing changed. In fact, it only got worse. Instead of improving, the situation only got worse. Mary's visits became daily occurrences. She started showing up unannounced, walking into our home like she lived there. At first, I tried to be polite, hoping she'd get the hint. But she didn't. I often found myself pacing the floor, dreading the sound of the doorbell. Whether I was working on something important or trying to enjoy some quiet time with Alex, I knew she would show up, loud, energetic, and completely ignoring our boundaries. One afternoon, I had just settled down with a book when the doorbell rang again. I took a deep breath before answering it, already knowing who it was. Sure enough, there stood Mary, holding a bag of groceries. Hi, dear. I thought I'd stop by and make dinner for you too, she said, brushing past me before I could even respond. Mary, that's really kind of you, but I already planned dinner, I said, forcing a smile. Oh, nonsense. I'll just add to it, she said cheerfully, heading straight into the kitchen. I clenched my jaw. I wanted to scream, this is my home, but instead, I swallowed my frustration and let her take over my kitchen. That night, after she finally left, I turned to Alex, my patience completely gone. Alex, this is too much, I said, my voice shaking. She's taking over our lives. He looked uncomfortable.
She means well, Sarah.
She just wants to help. I don't need this kind of help. I need space. I need to feel like our home is actually ours. I said, my frustrations spilling out. I'll talk to her, he promised. But of course, he never did. Weeks passed, and Mary's presence became a constant part of my life. I felt like a guest in my own home. My anxiety grew every day, and I started feeling completely alone. And then something happened that changed everything. A few months into our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. I remember the moment so clearly, standing in the bathroom, staring at the little pink lines on the test. My hands trembled as I clutched the sink for support. "Oh my God," I whispered. I had wanted this, but I also knew how much it would change everything. When I told Alex, he was overjoyed. "We're going to be parents." "This is amazing," he said, pulling me into a tight embrace. For a brief moment, I felt hopeful. Maybe this would bring us closer. Maybe he'd finally understand why I needed space, why I needed him to set boundaries with his mother. But my relief was short-lived. Mary took my pregnancy as an invitation to be even more involved. She started dropping by every single day, insisting on being part of everything: doctor's appointments, nursery shopping, even trying to control what I ate. "You shouldn't be drinking that much coffee," she scolded one morning, snatching the cup out of my hands. "Mary, I'm allowed 1 cup a day," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Still, it's not good for the baby. You should be drinking herbal tea. I'll bring some over tomorrow." I sighed, already knowing there was no point in arguing. Then came the baby name suggestions. One day, she showed up at our house, a list in hand. "I've thought of some great names for the baby," she announced, beaming. Alex and I have already decided on a name," I said cautiously. "But that's not fair," she protested. "I should have a say in my grandchild's name." That was it. I snapped. "Mary, this is my child, not yours. You need to back off." She looked stunned, like no one had ever spoken to her that way before. Then, her expression darkened. "I was just trying to help," she muttered before storming out. I expected Alex to support me. Instead, he was angry at me. "Did you have to be so harsh?" he asked later that night. "Alex, she's trying to take over our lives." I shouted, exasperated. "I can't take it anymore." He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I'll talk to her." But as always, nothing changed. As my due date approached, I felt more exhausted and isolated than ever. I knew if I stayed in that house, I'd have no peace. So, for the last few weeks before the birth, I moved in with my parents in a different city. "You'll be safe here, sweetheart," my mom assured me, rubbing my back. And for the first time in months, I finally felt some relief. Then, Adam was born. And that's when things truly spiraled out of control. The moment I held my son, Adam, in my arms, I felt a wave of love and protection I had never known before. He was so tiny, so perfect. I knew I would do anything to keep him safe. For the first 24 hours, I was in a blissful bubble. My parents were by my side, helping and supporting me. Alex was thrilled, though I could tell he was stressed about handling things back home. Then, Mary showed up. I was still in my hospital bed when the door opened, and there she was, holding a piece of paper with a smug smile. "I've thought of some great names for the baby," she announced, stepping inside as if she owned the place. I sighed deeply, already exhausted from the birth. "We've already decided on a name. His name is Adam." Her face dropped instantly. "But that's not fair. I should have a say in naming my grandson." I looked at Alex for support, but he stayed silent. "Mary," I said as calmly as I could, "this is our child, not yours. The decision is made." She huffed but didn't argue further. Still, the visit was draining, and I was relieved when she finally left. I prayed that when we got home, I'd get some peace. I was so wrong. From the moment we returned home to Brookfield, Mary took over. She showed up every single day, disrupting Adam's sleep, insisting on holding him whenever she wanted, and telling me everything I was doing wrong. "You need to swaddle him tighter. He looks hungry. Are you sure you're feeding him enough? You should let me stay over to help you at night." I was exhausted. I could barely function from the lack of sleep, and having her constantly criticizing me in my own home was unbearable. One day, she barged in unannounced while I was trying to breastfeed Adam. "Oh, don't be shy," she laughed when she saw my shocked face. "I've done this before." I was furious. "Mary, I need privacy. You can't just walk in whenever you want." She rolled her eyes. "I'm just trying to help." That night, I finally broke down in front of Alex. "Alex, I can't do this anymore," I sobbed. "She's making my life miserable, and you're letting it happen." He looked uncomfortable, but he didn't defend me. "She's just excited about being a grandmother," he muttered. I stared at him, my heart sinking. "You promised me boundaries, Alex. You lied." He looked guilty, but he didn't argue. I knew then that I was on my own. And then the worst happened. One afternoon, when Adam was 3 months old, I had to run some errands. I asked Alex to watch him, but Mary was there too. I hesitated. I didn't trust her, but Alex promised he'd be there. "I won't leave him alone with her," he assured me. Reluctantly, I left. When I returned home, I could hear Adam screaming from outside the house. My heart pounded as I rushed inside. "Why is he crying?" I shouted, running toward his room. I found Mary looking flustered, pacing the living room while Alex sat on the couch, doing nothing. I tried to calm him down, but he just wouldn't stop crying. Mary snapped, her frustration clear. I pushed past them and ran to Adam's crib. He was red-faced, trembling, and screaming at the top of his lungs. I scooped him up, holding him close, trying to soothe him. "What happened?" I demanded, my panic rising. And then I saw it. Mary's face twisted in frustration, and in a sudden, horrifying moment, she hit Adam on the head. "Be quiet," she snapped. Everything froze. For a second, Adam stopped crying. Then he let out a weak, gasping wail, and suddenly, he went limp. My world shattered. "What did you just do?" I screamed. Alex jumped to his feet, but still said nothing. He looked shocked, but he didn't stop her. I didn't have time to argue. I ran out of the house, holding Adam's tiny, lifeless body, and drove straight to the hospital. I prayed the whole way, begging for my son to be okay. I sat in the sterile hospital waiting room, my hands shaking as I clutched Adam's tiny blanket. My heart pounded in my chest, a terrifying rhythm that echoed in my ears. What if he didn't wake up? What if I lost him? The fluorescent lights above buzzed softly, but the silence in the room felt deafening. I kept staring at the double doors, praying for a doctor to walk through and give me good news. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a man in a white coat approached me. "Are you Adam's mother?" he asked, his voice calm but serious. I shot up from my seat, desperate for answers.
Yes.
"How is he? Is he okay?" The doctor sighed. "Your son is stable for now, but we have concerns. His injuries are consistent with shaken baby syndrome." My entire body went cold. Shaken baby syndrome? I repeated in disbelief. My hands trembled as I covered my mouth, trying to stop the sob that threatened to escape. The doctor nodded.
Yes.
"It's caused by violent shaking or an impact. Has Adam fallen recently? Or been handled roughly?" I felt sick. I had seen it happen with my own eyes. Mary had hit my baby. She had hurt him in a moment of frustration, and Alex just stood there. Tears streamed down my face as I took a deep breath, trying to compose myself. "It wasn't a fall," I whispered. "It was my mother-in-law. She hit him." The doctor's expression hardened instantly. "This is serious. We have a responsibility to report suspected child abuse. Have you contacted the authorities?" I looked down at my son's blanket, gripping it tightly. I had been afraid of confrontation for too long. I had let Mary control my life, let Alex make excuses for her. But this was unforgivable. I looked back up at the doctor, my voice steady this time. "Call the police." The moment I made the decision, everything happened fast. A nurse led me into a small, private waiting room while the hospital staff alerted the authorities. I sat there, my hands gripping the armrests of the chair, my breath shaky. My baby was lying in a hospital bed, hurt because of her. The door opened and 2 police officers walked in. One of them, a A tall man with a serious expression pulled out a notepad. Miss Sarah, we understand that you reported an incident of child abuse involving your son. Can you tell us exactly what happened? I nodded slowly, wiping my tears away. I needed to stay strong for Adam. Taking a deep breath, I told them everything. I left my son with my husband, Alex, and his mother, Mary. I was only gone for a few hours. When I returned home, I could hear Adam crying loudly from outside. When I walked in, Mary looked frustrated, but Alex was just sitting there like nothing was wrong. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to continue. I picked up my son and tried to comfort him, but she was so angry. And then, I saw her do it. She hit him on the head. One of the officers stiffened. She struck an infant. I nodded, my voice breaking.
Yes.
And right after that, he went limp. I rushed him here as fast as I could. The officer exchanged a glance with his partner before turning back to me. We'll need to speak to the doctors and examine his medical records. If the injuries match your statement, we will proceed with an arrest. A lump formed in my throat. This was really happening. Will she go to jail? I asked hesitantly. If the evidence proves what you've said, she will be charged with child abuse and endangerment, he replied firmly. She could face prison time. I exhaled deeply, a strange mix of relief and fear washing over me. One more thing, Miss Sarah, the officer continued. Where is your husband in all this? You said he was present when it happened. I felt my stomach tighten. He saw it. I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. He saw everything, and he did nothing. The officer frowned. That's serious. If he knew his mother was harming the baby and failed to intervene, he could also be held accountable. I looked down at my lap, my fingers twisting nervously. I had spent years waiting for Alex to defend me, to stand up for me. He never did. And now he had failed our son. This was the moment of truth. Do you want to press charges against him as well? The officer asked. I took a deep breath. I already knew my answer. I sat there, staring at the officer. His question echoed in my mind. Do you want to press charges against Alex as well? Alex. The man who had promised to protect me. The man who had vowed to be a good husband, a good father. But when the moment came to protect his own child, he did nothing. I felt a lump in my throat. Miss Sarah, the officer prompted gently. I lifted my head, my voice calm but firm.
Yes.
I want to press charges against both of them. The officer nodded. We'll proceed with the investigation. For now, we'll need your official statement in writing. Do you feel safe returning home? Home. The place where my baby had been hurt. I shook my head.
No.
I can't go back there. Not while he's still there. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? I thought about my parents. They had always welcomed me with open arms. I had stayed with them before Adam was born, and I knew they would take me in again without question.
Yes.
I'll go to my parents' house, I replied. The officer stood up. That's a good decision. We'll notify you once we've made the arrests. In the meantime, focus on your son. I nodded, holding back tears. I looked toward the hallway, where my little boy lay in his hospital bed, hooked up to machines that monitored his tiny heartbeat. I had failed to protect him before. I would never fail him again. Later that evening, I sat beside Adam's hospital crib, gently stroking his little hand. His breathing had stabilized, and the doctors assured me that with time, he would recover. I had just started drifting off when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated before answering. Hello. Miss Sarah, this is Officer Bradley. I wanted to inform you that both Mary and Alex have been taken into custody. I let out a shaky breath. They're both in jail? I asked, my heart pounding.
Yes.
Mary was arrested on charges of child abuse and endangerment. Alex is being charged as well for failing to protect his child and being complicit in the abuse. I covered my mouth, tears spilling down my cheeks. It was finally over. I also need to inform you that Mary is denying everything. She claims Adam must have fallen out of his crib, the officer continued. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course, she was lying. But the medical evidence supports your claim, and your testimony will be crucial in court, he added. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. I'll do whatever it takes. That's good to hear. Stay safe, Ms. Sarah. We'll be in touch soon. I hung up, my hand still shaking. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. The trial process was long and exhausting. I had to relive everything. The intrusion, the emotional manipulation, the way Mary had slowly taken control of my life. And worst of all, the moment she had hit my baby. She sat across from me in the courtroom, her expression cold and unremorseful. Alex, on the other hand, looked defeated. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. The prosecutor laid out all the evidence. The medical reports, the hospital records, my statement, the doctor's testimonies. When it was my turn to speak, I took a deep breath and looked straight at the judge. This isn't just about me, I said, my voice steady. It's about my son. He is an innocent child who was harmed by the very people who were supposed to love him. I refuse to let anyone, not even family, jeopardize his safety ever again. I saw the judge nod slightly, his face serious. After weeks of testimony, the final verdict came. Mary was found guilty. She was sentenced to prison time and ordered to attend mandatory therapy and parenting classes. Alex was given a lesser sentence, but he was stripped of parental rights until he could prove he was capable of protecting his son. I walked out of that courtroom feeling lighter than I had in years. It was over. Over the next few months, I focused on rebuilding my life. I filed for divorce. I moved back in with my parents for a while until I found a small apartment where Adam and I could live peacefully. Slowly, life became normal again. One evening, as I sat on the couch with Adam snuggled in my arms, he looked up at me with sleepy eyes. "Mommy," he mumbled. "Yes, baby?" I whispered, stroking his soft hair. "Why doesn't Grandma visit anymore?" I felt my heart tighten. How do you explain something like this to a child? I kissed his forehead gently. "Grandma is learning how to be a better person," I said softly. "And we want to make sure everyone in our life is safe and happy." He nodded, satisfied with my answer, and drifted off to sleep. I smiled to myself, feeling something I never thought I'd feel again.
Peace.
Life wasn't perfect, but it was mine, and I was finally free. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe for more. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you even more amazing stories. Stay tuned for more, and thank you for being a part of our journey.